Hey guys, how's it going today? In today's video, we'll be taking a in-depth look at the different build paths for Lux. As I said in the previous video, she does have a wide variety of playstyles, and because of that, she can have so many different build paths and item setups for her. So we'll start it off with the mid lane builds. So depending on the enemy team comp and your playstyle, if you're trying to play the one-shot burst Lux build where they have like 3 to 4 squishies and you know that you can one-shot one of them, and you can play it from ahead, you can go with the Luden's Tempest into Sork Shoes into Mage Eyes. You take that power spike and you try to snowball that. That I've spoken about in previous videos. It's just because it's a lot of magic pen for cheap. And then after that, if you're really far ahead, you can go the Death Cap. I like the Death Cap because it's similar to the Horizon Focus, except for it's like 800 gold more investment, but it just has so much more substantial AP on it. Depending on the enemy team comp, if you have to actually have some type of self-sustain or self-peel, you can go Zhonya's as your second full item, I guess, because the Mage Eyes is so cheap. I know that it is counted as legendary, but I typically only look at the, people don't usually associate a Mage Eyes with a full item, so you can go the Zhonya's over that, and then at that point, you look at the enemy team comp. If they're building AP, MR, you can go Void Staff, so you get closer to that 0 value. If they're not, then you can go Death Cap into either Morel Nelocom if they have Lifesteal. So then your last item becomes like a flex spot where it's like if they have MR, you go Void Staff. If they have Lifesteal, you go more. If they don't, then you can build something along the lines of like Rallies, where it makes you slightly more tanky with AP, and then your ability slow. The last item is pretty flexible, where you can also go like Demonic Embrace, Banshee's Veil, all these different items depending on the enemy team comp. But with these items, you should be able to one-shot any squishy. And then that's also with the Dark Harvest runes that I spoke about in the previous video. If you're looking at a more tanky team, I would not go this build because you only have one combo and it forces you to have to hit the enemy backline to be able to one-shot them. Instead, I would play the more poke build, which is the Arcane Comet rune set that I spoke about in the previous video, where it's Arcane Comet. This can be Mana Flow or Nullifying Orb depending on the enemy laner. Transcendence for the CDR, and then Scorcher Gathering Storm. And then your secondary tree can be the Cheap Shot. Can also be, it can be like Cheap Shot with Ravenous Hunter, or it can be the Resolve tree and you take like Bone Plating with the rune that if you CC somebody and your opponent or your teammate hits them, to heal. It can also be Rejuvenate, where you gain more max health per minion dying near you. So the secondary tree is pretty open. You can go Presence of Mind with the Tenacity if they have some CC on their team. But the second build, if you're playing a lot more back and forth and poking, you can go Mandate. It's the kind of like the support Lulu mid lane build. If you have like a carry in the jungle or top lane, and you just want to make sure that they scale off, I would go tier with this build at the start. The previous build I didn't go tier because depending on your playstyle, the 600 mana from Ludens may be enough for you. It's typically enough for me if you have good timing with your backs. If you don't have good timing with your backs, you could even build the Seraphs over the Zhonya's and then push everything back an item, where you go like Zhonya's fourth item because of the low cost of the Magi's, and then, or sorry, Seraphs would be the fourth item, Zhonya's would be the fifth item, and then like Deathcap would be the sixth item. But if you're, backing and you typically don't walk into a fight with low mana, like you don't overstay on the board or on the map, then you can, you shouldn't need the Seraphs because of that 600 mana. With this build, you don't have a mana on your Mythic, so I would start the tier and then I would go with the Mandate, and then you go either your I'd go the defensive shoes in this build because you're not trying to one-shot somebody, so it'd be Merc Treads or Steel Caps. Then you can finish your tier item, which will be Archangels, and then at that point you have Mandate, and then you can go like Ardent Censer, so it's cheap AP items that will then help snowball your teammates and have them be the carry, because the additional shield power from the Ardent Censer would also probably be Redemption, just to kind of make them sustain. And then your last item could be Zhonya's if you need it, Void Staff if you're really just trying to push through some amount of damage, but typically it would just be more utility, or it'd be Zhonya's, more Nalocom. You might go Banshees, but again, it's typically one of these two, depending on what they have on their end. But this is a more supportive build. It's just that in the mid lane, you will hit these items faster, so you'll still be doing damage in the mid game. And then along with that, the Mandate also gives you your 15 AP per completed item you have. You could even go Deathcap here and you still have about 500 AP. So it pairs well with your shields because they'll scale off AP, and then with the Mandate, the Redemption 20% shield, and then the Ardent Censer 10% shield, your shield will be giant and helping your other carries. This also paired really well because this is also really effective in like poke, because the Mandate, like if they have squishies, your Mandate poke mark will actually start adding up a lot of damage. I've even built Mandate when I'm trying to play the carry role, and I'll go into other AP items here just because of how potent the Mandate damage is. Like, as you're poking, this damage will add up because your Q and your E will auto proc the 36 to 60 bonus damage on the Mandate. And then when, since you're playing supportive role, your ally hitting them will then proc the 90 to 150 magic damage. So that's why it's a supportive role, but it's still, the damage will add up as you poke people with it. If you're playing into, say, like 4 front row tanks, you could go the other supportive build, as you're not going to be able to one-shot enemy front lines typically, unless you're like really far ahead and they haven't built MR yet. But the issue with that is, like, at low elo, you're not going to be able to end games typically fast enough that you're going to play off your snowball. So if you get into a late game and you're playing like the early game snowball one-shot build, and you get into a late game with tanks, then you're not going to be able to really one-shot anybody. The build I would also go there would probably be something along the lines of Moonstone Renewer. This is if you're playing really back and forth and like say they have 3 or 4 tanks and then they also have poke on their end. This mythic will keep your team topped off in health so that when a fight breaks out, your team will still be healthy while you're poking down the enemy team. So it'd be Moonstone Renewer as the mythic. You'd probably go tier with this, or I would go tier with this also because again, Moonstone Renewer doesn't have mana on it. So I'd go Moonstone Renewer there, and then you go your defensive items here. You could go Sorc Juice here if you're just trying to do more damage and you know that you're not threatened by the enemy team. Like if they can't dive on you and you just don't really need the defensive stats, you could go Sorc Juice. But then you go your tier here, and then you want to go Demonic Embrace. This item pairs really well with Moonstone Renewer. That's why these two items go hand in hand together right now. I would even consider building Demonic Embrace over the Archangel Staff, second item. And then again, you can go like Redemption to keep prolonged fights going on, because if they have those front lines, the fight's gonna go a while. You can Redemption yourself or your teammates as they're taking those prolonged fights. And then the other item would be either Mikhail if they have like any hard CCs, but typically it would be Ardent Tensor again or Zhonya's. But the reason that these two pair well together, the Demonic Embrace and the Moonstone, is because if you hit an enemy champion with a skill, you'll see while they're burning, this is still ticking up, which means that if I had an allied champion here, this thing would tick at max stats off of one skill. So you see there, and then the Demonic Embrace burn is going on, and then I would be healing this damaged champion, and I get max stats for only one spell cast. So then that would actually heal about 150 health at max cast, and then you know that's how you keep your team topped off. So it's kind of like an Alistar passive, but these two pair together so well that you get the percentage health damage off of the Demonic Embrace, and because it's a dot, you're gonna be in combat for Moonstone Renewer the whole time. Okay, so for the support Lux build now. For support Lux, you want to start a support item. If you're really confident at poking and the enemy team support isn't an engaged champion on you, you'd go Spell Thief just to harass. This is, like I said previously, I would go Q for the CC in the dual lane, and then you have your E to also poke. So you have that, and you want to stack that up by harassing the enemy champions when they go up to CS or when they walk into range. And then you get the Frostfang upgrade as soon as you can. The other option would be the Relic Shield. The only time I would really go Relic Shield is if your ADC is playing a farming ADC, which would be along the lines of like Ezreal, like Kai'Sa, some of the late game ADCs. Vayne is a toss up, like, you know, your ADC not having a lot of early game pressure, again like Ezreal, or if you're playing into engage champs that can full engage on you if you step out of position. Relic Shield will help you farm safely, where you can still generate your own gold. It still has a AP scaling. It's not as much, but it's a lot safer, so you can farm gold and farm the minions without being in threatening range of your opponents engaging on you. If you do go Relic Shield, you want to mainly use the procs on the melee minions and every cannon minion because they give you the most gold. They made the Relic Shield a lot easier to farm with now because range minion or range champions can proc it and execute minions when they're under 30% of their health. So you'd go your support item that auto stacks, and then I would follow the same idea as the mid lane support Lux. If your team, more often than not, like 80% of your games, you're gonna go mandate because you have so much. Since you're in a dual lane, you can proc the damage on both marks of this a lot. So then you'll be able to poke out a lot of people, and it makes your harass a lot better. So you'd go like mandate into. I typically go lucidity boots. The summoner spells would be flash, and typically I'll go exhaust in 90% of my games. And then the lucidity boots, reducing the exhaust cooldowns makes a huge difference, or your flash cooldowns. For me personally, like you're looking at flash having 300-second cooldown. When you go lucidity boots, it knocks off half a minute, so 30 seconds, a little over 30 seconds. Same thing with exhaust. So when they try to engage on you because you're a passive player as a support, like you can poke, but you don't want to get full engaged on. It's always nice to have the exhaust up, especially if like they have a really big engage jungle, engage support, or engage mid laner that can get on top of you or your ADC, and then you just have the exhaust to knock off 40% of their damage. And if you have the exhaust and you see them coming in, don't wait until after they drop their combo to exhaust. Like you want to exhaust them when they're running in and trying to combo you. You might burn it and they might back off, but that means that they didn't get a kill. So those are the boots I will almost always go as support. And then your rest of your items would be the redemption, typically second. That's just to keep sustained fights, and then you can keep in lane longer. And then you can go Ardent Censer. You can build these vice versa. It all depends on what you need at the time. If you're playing against poke, I would normally go redemption, just because if you take a lot of poke, then you can redemption heal up your team. And then if they're playing engage and you just need the raw damage and the upfront damage from the Ardent Censer by shielding your allies, that also would be when I'd build Ardent Censer over redemption. But typically it would just be these two as the next two items. And then your last item would be either Mikael if they have CC, and then that would be about it would typically be these items because of the synergy with your shield and heals. It makes your W's really big, so that's why I would go these items, and then this will stop your ADC or your carry from being locked down. If you do have this build, I would typically play behind my ADC. It's weird to say that you want to play behind your ADC as a support, but these are more for your ADC to keep them alive from an engage than you are. Because like if they get Leona ultied, Ashe ultied, things like that, you can Mikael them and get them out of the CC. So it's like a QSS for them. They don't have to invest in it. Malzahar ulti, so it gets them out of it. Sorry, it does not remove Malzahar ulti because it is suppression. But like Ashe ulti, Leon ulti. If they're playing Ashe engage, Ashe bot lane, I would even consider building this as your secondary item before you finish the rest of these. Just because Ashe engage is very big, and it can like make all the difference. And then while they're engaging on your ally, you'd want to first remove the CC and then land a Q on them, because it's pretty telegraphed where they're going to be if they engage on your carry. And then you throw out your W, depending on if they're going to get bursted down, you throw out either your W or your Q first, but then it's the other one on top, and then as they're CC'd and your ADC is building different distance, you want to throw your E out to slow them so they can't follow the distance that your ADC is generated for themselves, unless they use like a movement spell. If you're gonna play, so that's why like the mandate build is just really good into poking. But if you're like a poking playstyle, because it just stacks a lot of damage with your ADC in lane. If you're playing into those tanky teams and you're playing for more of a late game, you can go the Moonstone Renewer, where it would be along the lines of so your support item is generally, we went through that, that's not gonna really change. Then you go Moonstone Renewer into the Demonic, just because of that synergy. And then you have your same cooldown boots, and then you only have space for 2 of these, so then I would probably go with the Redemption, as that's always good. And then these 2 become a toss-up on which one you go with. More than likely it will be the Ardent Censer. And with this build you can kind of play up a little more, but you still don't want to get fully caught out. The reason you can play up a little bit more is because of the Demonic Embrace. It gives you slightly more survivability from burst because it has 358 health on it, along with additional defensive stats as you hit opponents with skills. But then, you know, you just play with this and then it'll keep you and your ADC topped off if they don't have a lot of like one-shot potential on your ADC, so you can like keep them topped off so that they don't have to really lifesteal as much, and things like that. So those are the different builds for Lux and the different situations in which I would build them. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe below. Thank you. Thank you for checking out my champion guide. I hope that the tips in this video help you guys in your class. I know that these are not the most popular builds in playstyle, however they are accepted builds for gameplay. Please let me know in the comments below the next champion you want to see. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe for future content. I hope these tips help, and as always, keep playing.